We all have this Hollywood idea of what hacking looks like, right? But the real cat and mouse game, the really high-stakes stuff, isn't just about breaking in. It's about getting out without leaving a single trace. There's this invisible war being fought every single day between people trying to erase their digital footprints and the investigators who are desperately trying to find them. I mean, think about it. We leave digital breadcrumbs absolutely everywhere, from our phones, our smartwatches, to our laptops. So how do the people who really have something to hide make crucial evidence just vanish? Sometimes it happens right under the noses of law enforcement, and that's the big question we're going to dig into. Well, this whole practice actually has a name: Antiforensics. And no, this is not about just hitting the delete key. This is a deliberate, strategic effort to completely sabotage a digital investigation before it can even get started. It's all about making the clues unreadable, unreachable, or just making them cease to exist entirely. So where do we even begin? Well, let's start with the most direct, most brute force methods. Turns out you don't always need some complex piece of code when, simple physics will get the job done. Seriously, think about it. If investigators can't get their hands on the device, they can't analyze what's on it. It's that simple. Tossing a phone into a river or dropping a hard drive to the bottom of a lake, that's brutally effective. Same goes for taking a hammer or a power drill to a device. Now, data wiping and full device encryption are a little more technical for sure, but they all have the exact same goal: make the evidence totally and completely inaccessible. Okay, but what if you can't just smash the device? What if you need to keep it? Well, that's when we start getting into the world of digital deception, where critical evidence can be hidden right out in the open. Okay, so take a look here. What you're seeing is the raw data of a normal JPEG image file. See those first few bytes that are highlighted? That's the file's signature. It's basically a little signpost that tells your computer, hey, I'm a photo. You should open me with an image viewer. And now, watch this little sleight of hand. Using a pretty simple tool called a hex editor, someone can just change that signature. In this case, the JPEG signature gets replaced with one for a Microsoft Word document. The picture itself, the data inside, it's still there, totally untouched. But now it's wearing a completely different disguise. And here's the payoff. When an investigator tries to open that file, their computer goes, oh, this is a Word document. But since the data inside is still an image, the computer just gets confused and throws an error, calling the file corrupt. The evidence is perfectly preserved, but it's completely hidden behind a digital false wall. Pretty clever, right? It's not just about disguising what a file is, but also when it was. Another really common trick is to just mess with time itself. See, every file on your computer has these little timestamps for when it was created, modified, and last accessed. Well, special software can alter those dates, making a file that was just created yesterday look like it's been sitting on that computer for 5 years. For an investigator trying to build a timeline of events, this is an absolute nightmare. All right, now we get to the really sophisticated stuff. This is where criminals basically become digital ghosts, using computers in ways that leave behind almost zero evidence that they were ever there. The secret here is to avoid touching the computer's hard drive at all. You can load an entire operating system, like the privacy-focused one called Tails, right onto a USB stick. You plug it into a computer, boot from the USB, and do all your work in this self-contained world. When you're finished, you just unplug the stick, and poof, all the activity, the chats, the files, it all just vanishes because nothing was ever written to the computer's internal storage. And don't let the size fool you. We are not talking about some big, bulky external drive. A whole secret operating system plus a huge trove of documents can be stored on a micro SD card that is literally smaller than your fingernail. It can be hidden just about anywhere, swallowed, or snapped in half in an instant. This right here is the very definition of disposable evidence. And this takes the whole ghost concept to another level. Using software like Veracrypt, you can actually install an operating system inside another operating system. So to an investigator, the drive just looks like it's encrypted normally. When they force the criminal to give up the password, they provide the one for the decoy OS, which is totally clean. But meanwhile, the real, hidden OS remains completely invisible, disguised as just a bunch of random, jumbled data. It is the ultimate tool for plausible deniability. So, with all of these incredible, mind-bending techniques out there, how do investigators even stand a chance? Well, they've had to completely change their tactics, adapting to this new world where evidence can just disappear in a puff of smoke. This slide really says it all. The old-school way of seizing a computer was just to run in and pull the plug. But if you do that today against someone using whole disk encryption, you've just basically locked a steel door and thrown away the key. The evidence is gone forever.
The new rule, the absolute #1 priority, is to capture the machine while it is still running to grab all the data from its live memory, its RAM, before it vanishes.
And honestly, there is no better real-world example of this than the takedown of Ross Ulbricht, the guy who ran the infamous dark web marketplace known as the Silk Road. Ulbricht was using layers upon layers of sophisticated encryption and all sorts of anti-forensic techniques. His laptop was a digital fortress. But the FBI realized something crucial. To beat his incredibly high-tech security, they were going to need a surprisingly low-tech solution. And here's the plan. It was just brilliant in its simplicity. They tracked Ulbricht to a public library. 2 undercover agents started a loud, totally fake fight right behind him. Just as his head turned for a split second to see what all the commotion was about, a 3rd agent swooped in and snatched his open, running, and most importantly, unencrypted laptop right off the table. In that one single moment, they bypassed every single one of his digital defenses. So that really brings us to the final question, doesn't it? This is a constant battle of escalation. For every new forensic tool that gets invented, a new anti-forensic trick is developed to defeat it. It is a relentless digital arms race that's being fought in the shadows. And it really makes you wonder, in this fight, who's actually winning?